everybody. Welcome back to the CCSN podcast. I'm Chris here with Chase. Chase, how you doing today?
Not doing too bad. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Well, we kicked off week 10 of the NFL games yesterday with a pretty shitty game, if I say so myself. We had the Carolina Panthers versus the Atlanta Falcons. And if we're being honest, I don't know why this game went the way it did. We had the Carolina Panthers, a team that should be tanking, a team that made it pretty clear that they were trying to tank. I mean, they cleared house and they won this game. Probably lost them a good chance at the number one overall pick. And then on the other side, we have the Atlanta Falcons, who are actually fighting for a playoff spot, sitting at, 4-6 now. This was a terrible outing by Marcus Mariota last night. Shitty weather did not help his cause, but you got to win this game, man. Against probably the worst team in the NFL. He did not show up yesterday.
Yeah, look, I like Mariota a decent amount. I liked him in Tennessee. I felt like he kind of got a bad chance there. They didn't really give him the keys ever. But now we're seeing why. He doesn't have the talent to make the plays and really the arm talent to stretch the field. I feel like the one thing that I take away from this game is that Arthur Smith is getting a little bit too much hate. People are saying like he's the worst coach in the NFL. It's not like the Panthers weren't trying to win that game. Like the players on the Panthers aren't going out there saying we're tanking, we're rebuilding. He still had to go out there and could play a very competitive team with Marcus Mariota as a starting quarterback. And that Falcons roster is just void of almost any talent. The fact that they're 4-6 at this point, that's a testament to how great they've been. But Kyle Pitts and Drake London, they've still been no shows so far, and they really do need a quarterback. That's what this game boils down to.
I mean, yeah, you have two young weapons, two young stars, especially Kyle Pitts. I mean, this guy changes the tight end position, and ever since he got drafted, everyone was excited to see what he could do on the field. Had a very impressive rookie season, 1,000-yard rookie year, and he just does not look like he's involved in the plays at all this year for the Falcons. I mean, yesterday Mariota missed him on at least two passes that I saw, and that was just the clear evidence. Get this guy a guy who can get him the ball. I mean, it's very evident.
At this point, Marcus Mariota, we've all been watching the games. He's not played well. He is 10th in EPA among quarterbacks. He's a top 10 quarterback in EPA. That's a testament to how Arthur Smith has worked with really just what he's been given. It's like he's not putting together a horrible offense. He's working with a horrible offense at the end of the day. So I guess my takeaway from this game is that Arthur Smith is getting just way too much hate, and Marcus Mariota is not good enough to win you many games. The Panthers, though, look, they're screwing themselves out of the Bryce Young sweepstakes here, which that sucks for them because what are they going to do at quarterback if they don't have a top 3 pick?
Yeah, I mean, it does not really make any sense. They have two top three picks sitting on the bench for them right now in Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield. And
Did you
even
see
though
the Baker
Baker,
headbutt?
I was just going to say that even though Baker didn't play yesterday, he seemed like he was the most excited for the win. And that whole situation in Carolina right now is so weird. I mean, if you told me 5 years ago that we'd have Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield as the second and third string option behind PJ Walker, I probably would have laughed at you. But you know what? That's how football works. And it was a game to not remember, if we're being quite honest.
Yeah, it was honestly probably one of it reminded me of those early season Broncos primetime games. It was just one of those games where you're just like, God, why am I watching this? Can I turn this off? But nope, you can't.
Just
Uh,
just every Broncos game in general, to be honest.
that's true. They're back from their bye this week. We'll see if they're another one
They,
like that.
they lost to the bye last week, if we're being honest. They were probably a close one too, where they just missed opportunities. Moving on to this week, though, one matchup that I'm kind of excited about. We have the Bills versus the Vikings, and Josh Allen's not even playing this week. And the reason I'm excited is because it's the Case Keenum comeback game.
Revenge game.
The
Let's
revenge game,
go.
baby. Stephon Diggs' first game against Minnesota since getting traded. And let's just talk about this trade for a second. Is there a more equal sided trade in NFL history that you can think of? Stephon Diggs got traded to the Buffalo Bills. Vikings got a number one or first round pick out of it, and that ended up being Justin Jefferson. Their stats over this ever since getting traded. Diggs since getting traded, 2 1,000-yard seasons on the road to another one, 25 touchdowns, and Justin Jefferson since getting drafted, 2 1,000+ yard seasons on the road to another one, and 20 touchdowns. I mean, can you think of a more evenly sided trade?
Absolutely not. I mean, they're almost identical players at the end of the day. If I were to rank my top 10 wide receivers, those two are interchangeable at their spot, and they are right back and forth, right next to each other. I'd probably have Jefferson around 4 and Diggs around 5, and I feel like you could switch it either way, however you feel. They have such a similar skill set that I feel like even if the trade hadn't gone down, not much would have changed. The NFL would have stayed fairly similar, assuming that the Bills go ahead and pick Jefferson with that pick there. But still, it really is probably the biggest trade weapon wise in NFL history, though. Has there ever been a top 5 receiver traded for a top 5 receiver? No. So, I mean, it's really a remarkable trade that happened, and something that I thought when it happened that the Bills robbed them. But I was proven wrong because Jefferson, every bit as good as Diggs.
Yeah, I mean, as good as Howie Roseman's been over the past couple of years, the Vikings can thank him for that one, for making it not look like a big mistake. But yeah, I'm really excited for this game. I think Case Keenum shows out. If I'm being honest, I think him and Diggs, they still got that Minnesota connection, and they're gonna keep it going, keep it rolling. I'm excited for this one.
I think that the Vikings can win this game as long as Josh Allen doesn't play, which is what it looks like it's trending towards right now. He's not practicing today, which is Friday. And I mean, yeah, it's Case Keenum, but like that offense can't run the ball. When Case Keenum was in Minnesota and he was playing well, they had a very good running game. And the Bills offense relies so much on Josh Allen's rushing ability that you're switching that out for Case Keenum. I think they could end up with like literally 20, 30 yards on the ground total. And then you're putting a lot of pressure on Case Keenum to slice them up through the air, which truthfully, the Vikings do not have a very talented secondary. So it is possible, but I do think that the Vikings probably have the edge in this game. Is it in Buffalo or in Minnesota?
In Buffalo, in
Yeah,
Buffalo.
we'll see. But I do think that the Vikings probably have the advantage, and I think the Bills are favored by 2.5. So I'd probably take the Vikings on that.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a check down game for the Buffalo Bills. A lot of Devin Singletary and who did they just trade for from the Colts? Hines.
Naeem
So
Hines, yeah.
yeah, so I think it's gonna be a mix of those two again. A lot of balls. But you know what? It would be fun to see a Case Keenum to Stephon Diggs touchdown against the Vikings. It's always fun to see stuff like that happen in the sports world. Another big game, not a big game, but another big thing in the NFL happening this week. We have the Raiders versus the Colts, and I wouldn't call this a big game, but it's Jeff Saturday's first game as a NFL head coach. And you know what? A lot of people found this hire a little weird, a little out of nowhere, to be honest, which it was. But yeah, man, after seeing that hype speech he gave at his press conference, I'd go to war for this guy. And you know, it's exactly what the Colts need. I think this is high a low risk, high reward situation. You know, if he sucks, you move on from your interim head coach, and if he's good, that's great. I mean, works out for the Colts, but the Colts are in a very weird situation right now.
The thing that has everybody up in arms is not the fact that they hired Jeff Saturday. And after that introductory press conference, look, he's as good as any interim head coach that you're going to find. But the thing that I think that everybody has an issue with is the process that came about hiring Jeff Saturday, because he was technically in an advisory role, but he wasn't even within the building before that. So, and the Colts owner has a very strange history as far as he doesn't really operate like a normal owner. Ursay is like absolutely crazy, and he does things based on his own. It's like spur of the moment decisions for him. Like Carson Wentz felt very spur of the moment decision, as did Matt Ryan. And there's been a couple of these. So I feel like Saturday was just another one of those where he was like, yeah, you know what? I feel like we need a guy like Jeff Saturday in the building, thinking he's like the super great football mind, but like there are other people out there, and the process of hiring an interim head coach shouldn't be, hey, let me just go hire out my favorite buddy. It should be, hey, let me go hire somebody that's qualified for the position. And that's not really what it was. But when you're looking at it, you just kind of have to take into the context who's running the organization. And Ursay's like an old dude who is a billionaire in charge of a football team. He's going to make the decisions if he wants to, and that's what he wants to do.
I mean, his explanation was great. I mean, he went on about making sausages for like 5 minutes to explain this coaching hire. So I don't think it really caught anyone by surprise after hearing that. It
Yeah.
was just pretty funny. But you know, I'm rooting for him. I think the energy is going to be really high, and I think they do win this game because if I'm being frank, I think the Raiders are the worst run organization, not organization, but head coaching wise. They can't close games at all. I mean, they've blown 3 to 4 double digit leads this year already. The Raiders are toast. I mean, I said that after week 3, but where do you go from here if you're the Raiders? Do you look to trade Derek Carr this offseason? I mean, he's owed over $85 million over the next 2 years. Do you move on from Josh McDaniels already? Do you take that L? I don't think they will. I think they'll give him at least another year. Man, you just brought in Devontae Adams. You have that Darren Waller contract that looks awful right now. I mean, he's been frankly non existent. Hunter Renfro's been battling injuries. And you know what? I say the thing about Derek Carr, I've been a big guy about Derek Carr not deserving of that huge extension. And, that's just how sports work nowadays. But there would be teams calling, I think. I mean, there's 2 years left. I mean, you got teams like the Jets. You have teams like the Colts who, spare the decision. I think that would be another Colts move, a Derek Carr move. So where do you go from here if you're the Raiders, if the season keeps moving the way it has been?
There, I saw this stat on Twitter today. I think it was from Schefter. Their big four, in quotes, with Renfro, Adams, Carr, and Waller, have played a combined 43 snaps together this season. They have not been healthy, which is something that I think a lot of organizations will tell themselves is an excuse and is like, or a reason, not an excuse. And they kind of keep going with it. But I don't think that's necessarily the position that the Raiders are in. I think that you can't trade Carr because you just brought in Devontae Adams for the sole reason that Derek Carr is his best friend. So you got to really give that an extra year. But I think what you've got to look at is McDaniels. McDaniels has never in his career been a good head coach candidate. I've been a huge person saying that he did not deserve a job, but hey, he's got it. So now you got to evaluate what to do from here. I think this is a guy that can get fired after 1 year. But what it comes down to is hitting on your picks because they've had 6 first-round picks in the last, I think it was, 4 years, and none of them are on a long-term contract. Josh Jacobs is the last one, and he's about to expire this year. So that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. If you can't fill out the talent outside of the top guys that you're paying, because look at all of their top guys. None of them are on rookie contracts. Derek Carr, paid. Darren Waller, paid. Your Max Crosby, paid. Devontae Adams, paid. Their whole entire team. They just paid Chandler Jones as well. So, who, by the way, he has half a sack this season. But they
Like
paid this
32.
whole team. Yeah, and you have to hit on guys that can come in on cheap deals and play for you. Otherwise, you're going to be pretty much employing Anthony Arnett as your starting cornerback, which is what they're doing right now, because you just have to sign guys off of practice squads. That's not the way to fill out your team. You just have to have a competent management, and that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. They don't have it. We talked about they might be the most poorly run organization in sports. I don't know that there's a question. I think they are. After a John Gruden, Josh McDaniels move, and then having no first round picks hit in the last decade, that's crazy. I mean, that's absolutely wild.
Yeah, I don't know how much longer you can ride with this offense. I mean, Darren Waller's 30. Devontae Adams is 30. Derek Carr, what is he now? 33. I mean, Renfro's still
He's
young.
like 31.
But
And Renfro's getting up there, man. He was an old rookie. He was like 25 when he came in.
yeah, but I mean, then
And he
that proves my
sucks this
point
year
even
too.
more. How much more can you ride with the next year thing? But we got an extra year. We got an extra year. We have 2 more years to make this work with Devontae Adams and Derek Carr. There are so many pieces on this team right now where it's just so evident that it won't work. And I
But look
understand.
at I don't know about that because they've been in every game this season. Every single game they've been in until the absolute very end. They just blow it in the fourth quarter, which is kind of the Raiders' way. But that's got Josh McDaniels' hands all over it. He just does not game plan very well. I mean, when Josh Jacobs was going off, he had this huge stretch of 3 games where he was going crazy. The very next game, he didn't touch the ball more than one time on the first 2 drives and ended with 9 carries for I think it was 34 yards. And that lost them the game. Was that I think it was the Texans game or something. Either way, they lost a big game because they just decided not to give Josh Jacobs the ball. And it was the game after the Texans game. But still, Josh McDaniels, really just a terrible head coach. And I don't think it's crazy to say that he gets fired after this year. I think he's absolutely on the hot seat. And it's not one more year with the exact same staff and the exact same team. you're completely overhauling it at this point, except for the key pieces that you already paid, because who's going to take them?
I mean, I think there would definitely be teams willing to take. I don't think you would trade. But this is the thing. I think they should trade these guys. I don't think they will, but you could definitely get stuff for a guy like Darren, or not Darren Waller, Derek Carr, and Devontae Adams if you were going to go that route. But they
The
won't.
Packers offered a second for Waller at the trade deadline, and they didn't take that. That was a mistake.
Yeah, that's
Who Waller
stupid.
is out again now. He's out for 4 weeks, so that was a huge mistake. But like I said, you can't trade Carr. You just can't do it because then what happens with the Devontae Adams contract? First of all, he gets pissed off, but then there's 3 years, $90 million left at a wide receiver position for a wide receiver who doesn't want to play with the team anymore. Because I feel like that's how that would go if Carr were to leave. So you're really locking yourself into this Carr Adams thing, and you just kind of have to build your team around that however you can. And the current iteration isn't doing it.
There are just too many pieces on this Raiders team that I think it's going to take a lot longer than 2 years to work this out. Offensive line,
I don't
aging pieces on
disagree.
the defense, secondary is terrible. I mean, they just cut my boy from Hard Knocks 5 years ago, Jonathan Abrams, which that kind of hurt because I remember watching
Yeah,
that Hard Knocks and I was like, this guy is going to be an absolute stud.
there was a
And
minute where Jonathan Abrams played decent at safety, more of a as a linebacker than a safety, but he was a hard hitter and he had a role
hard
on a
hitting.
defense. Yeah,
Yeah. And didn't the Packers pick him up?
they
Did I
did.
see that? Yeah,
They
I
did.
mean, maybe they can make that work. I mean, they made Russell Douglas a pretty competent player over there in Green
Not
Bay.
with their defensive coordinator. They're not going to be able to make that work. So much.
Yeah,
He
that is
just plays
true.
so much soft cover three, and it's just Jonathan Abrams is going to get cooked if you're putting him over the top trying to cover like. I was for whatever reason the first name that came to my mind when I was thinking speedster was Henry Ruggs, but Tyreek Hill. If you were to put him on Tyreek Hill, that would be brutal. Trying to cover over
Yeah.
the top.
I mean, he doesn't let Jair Alexander cover the wide receiver one. So ever since I saw that report, I think it was week 1 or week 2 that Alexander was frustrated with his defensive coordinator, won't let him play against the top guy, and the whole reasoning was this is my system and I do what I want. So ever since I saw that, I was like, I don't know. I don't know what this Green Bay defense. This was a defense coming into the year that everyone was saying they lost Devontae Adams, but they're supposed to have the top defense in the league. They brought in Quay Walker, who's been actually fantastic this year. He's been the one bright spot, not the one, but one of the bright spots for Green Bay. And I don't know, they just cannot put it together. Green Bay, they have a lot of moves to make, and we'll cover that eventually. But
It on that note, just slightly, it was weird to pay Devondre Campbell and then go out and draft Quay Walker as well. I thought you do one of the two. Otherwise, you spend the money on Devondre Campbell or the draft pick on Quay Walker on a wide receiver. You can't go both in on a linebacker. That's not going to help your team much when your offense is that bad. And we're seeing it come back and bite them in the ass very obviously right now. But that's my little Packer stint.
that's the Packer way, though. We'll say it every time. They have their ways, and they'll die with it as the Packers. But moving on to another team in the same division as the Packers, which is actually a little more exciting right now. And if I said this in the beginning of the year, I probably wouldn't have believed it. But the Chicago
Chicago,
Bears.
baby.
What are your thoughts on Justin Fields? Because there is a big switch in the media right now when it comes to Justin Fields. I mean, 4 weeks ago, Justin Fields was the guy who would be riding the bench by the end of the year. And now Justin Fields is a franchise guy who is going to make millions of dollars and lead Chicago to the promised land. I mean, I still am not 100% bought in on Justin Fields. I need a little more consistency. I mean, I said this with Trevor Lawrence back in week 3, and it's kind of proved my point a little bit. But Justin Fields right now, he's had, I think, 2 games with over 200 yards passing. He's had 1 game with over
Yeah,
200
just the
yards
one. And
passing.
it was at 208.
And I can't buy into this yet. I mean, one comparison I just want to think of is Jalen Hurts, if I'm being quite honest. I mean, last year I loved Jalen Hurts, Eagles fan here, but my question was, is this a guy I want to pay? Is this a guy who I'm paying to be really good for 4 years, 5 years with his run game, and then his run game dies out, and then he sucks, and then we're stuck with this big contract? No, he's shown he can do it with his arm. He's shown he can do it both ways. Still struggles against the blitz, but he's making his improvements. I have to see a lot more from Justin Fields before I am bought in, because frankly, I'm not bought in at all. He looks like he's having more fun. I'll give him that credit.
I'm not bought in, but I think that it's definitely time to start getting a little bit more excited about Justin Fields. Yeah, I was going to bring up the no 200 or the 1 200 yard game, but you also got to take into account his rushing ability and what that does for the offense. And I have always been a huge fan of Justin Fields' talent. I think he's got the arm strength that's in NFL plus plus territory. I think he's got the talent to make every throw outside the numbers and inside the numbers as well. He's got the physical tools that's able to, he can stand strong in the pocket, take a hit. He's one of those guys that's built very well. He does have some issues with pocket presence, but he's very young. The issue that I had was with how the Bears were surrounding him. They had done absolutely nothing to put him in a position to succeed. But as of recently, the Bears have kind of switched a bit on that. Bringing in Claypool was something that I really loved. And then also trading away the two defensive players, it not only makes it so that you're not it sounds weird, but it makes you less competitive in a way, and it kind of takes off the pressure because before the way that they were playing was a defensive style of football and then run the ball and try and basically beat teams by scoring or making them score less points instead of by scoring more than the other team, if that makes sense. But it just kind of wasn't working because they didn't have the talent, especially offensively on the offensive line, to play that style of football. But now they're changing. They traded away their two best defensive players. They don't care if they let up 40 points a game. That gives more opportunities for their offense and Justin Fields to get more reps on the field. And now he's got more talent. They're unleashing him throwing the ball and they're letting him run the ball instead of just handing it off. I think that now I'm starting to see it. I'm starting to see things come together. They've got $80 million this offseason. They've got two firsts. No, they traded away for the Fields, but they've got a first and they've got a couple or they've got their full slate of picks. So I think that it is not going to be a winning Chicago football team this year. Obviously, they're 3-6 at this point, but you're seeing the second year signs from Justin Fields because take a look at all the other second year quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence, is he in a much better position? Is Mac Jones? Is Trey Lance? No, not really. I think that Justin
Trailer.
Fields is in one of the best positions in football right now, as it from that draft class, I should say. That best positions in football is a stretch there, but yeah, the Bears have shown a willingness and the ability to surround Fields, which is something that they hadn't before. And as a guy that likes Fields' talent, I like to see that.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I think Justin Fields definitely has the pieces, but I still have to see a little bit more from him. And you know what? I was always a big believer in the way that Poles has been ever since he came in. I've been a big believer in Poles and what he's believed in. You know, he didn't want to be average. He didn't want to be a mediocre team fighting for that last playoff spot just to get bounced. You know, he took on a lot of the extra money. I mean, I think they have the most amount of money owed to players that aren't in the roster in the NFL right now. If I'm not correct, they have Akeem Hicks. We have Khalil Mack. Those are just two of the big names that I could think of right now. And you know what? It seems to be working. I mean, they have a ton of picks, not first round picks. They have a ton of money to spend. This upcoming free agency is not the best class in the NFL, but you're not looking to spend $80 million this year in total. I mean, spread that over the next 2 years and build a competent team around Justin Fields, and we'll see what can happen. I mean, I think Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, Chase Claypool, it's pretty good options right now. Add a little bit something to that. Get this man an offensive line for God's sakes, and we'll see what happens.
Get yourself a real separator at wide receiver. Get like a Devontae Smith type of player that can break off. I mean, you want to go big, go get yourself like a Justin Jefferson type of player. There are a couple guys in this draft that I feel like could end up growing into that. Smith and Jigba is the one that gets a lot of hype, but I'm not as high on him as most people. I think Marvin Harrison is the guy that
I
would
love
fit that.
him.
Yeah, I feel like he would fit that system very, very well. Was there an overlap between Fields and Harrison? I don't think so.
No.
No. Well, that it would have been cool, but still, it's the same thing as like there wasn't an overlap with Smith and Hurts. So hey, I think that could eventually be a pick that they look for, but just any way to improve that offense just a little bit more, improve the O line, get another weapon or two in there, and then we could really see Fields blossom to his full potential. I feel like.
Something that I would find really interesting for this team, or something that I would just like. I mean, it's kind of like a Madden move, but say the Giants don't bring back Saquon Barkley this year, which I think they will. But I feel like that would be just a pretty cool move for Chicago to make. I mean, get this guy someone he can just pass the ball up to. You mean if you want to still be a little rush heavy with Justin Fields, I get that, but bring in Saquon Barkley. I mean, I'm looking at some of the free agents right now. I mean, we have Kareem Hunt, Rashad Penny, Jamal Williams. You have Josh Jacobs too, who's not even 25 yet. I mean, there are some good options that you could definitely bolster this offense with. I mean, the wide receiver class is pretty awful though. I mean, like I think the fourth best is like Randall Cobb as your options. They kind of missed on that. I mean, the best right now that I'm looking at is you can go out and get Alan Lazard or Nelson Aguilar or DJ Chark or Sterling Shepard. So it's
And
not the best year.
there's always that wide receiver or two or three from that draft class that's about to get paid that the team won't want to pay them. We saw it all the time this year with like the AJ Browns and all those guys like that. You want to get paid and you're not the team's not willing to pay you, and then you get traded to another team and you end up showing you should have been paid by your original team. That's how it happens every single time. And Diggs would have been another example of that had Justin Jefferson not ended up being an all-time great wide receiver. Tyreek Hill's another one, although he didn't want to take the Chiefs' money, which is kind of strange to me. But I could go down the line for days on this. There are so many wide receivers. I feel like one of them will come available.
I wonder who though, because that's going to be very interesting. I mean, I feel like every good wide receiver got traded last offseason.
Well, it goes by draft class because that was the 2019 draft class, correct? That was like due for their extension. So this would be now the 2020. But then again, what is it like, Judy? Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's. I feel like it's gonna. I feel like if the Bears make a
Judy
trade,
is
it'd
up
be
for an
a smaller
extension.
guy like Jerry Judy, who you won't have to pay as much. I mean, if Jerry Judy gets like AJ Brown money, that would be crazy.
That would
But
be hilarious.
you know what I'm saying. I feel like there's not a lot of huge names. Like this year was a treat for NFL fans. I mean, we saw DK Metcalf on the market. We saw AJ Brown on the market. We saw who else? I'm missing somebody right now. It was Tyreek Hill. I mean,
Yeah,
another example. But like
Debo was the big one that
Debo.
never got traded. Yeah.
And that one was actually a guy who I thought should have got traded if I
Oh,
was the San Francisco
100%.
49ers.
Why did they? That's a different conversation. I can't believe they paid Debo. And then to do that and then go and bring in Christian McCaffrey, who's like a white Debo Samuel, is so funny to me. But hey, that's the Niner way. We'll see if it wins them a ring. I doubt it because you've got
It
Jimmy
definitely
G.
won't.
But
You have
hey,
Jimmy G and a just every offensive weapon other than like Brandon Ayuk is injury prone on that offense.
but
So
hey, look at the NFC right now. The NFC playoff quarterbacks: Daniel Jones, Geno Smith, Jalen Hurts,
did you see that Nick
Kirk
Wright take?
Cousins. Yeah, that's what I'm basing this off of.
And it's going to
So
happen. It is
it
going to
is.
happen.
Tom Brady
Daniel
is
Jones is
kind of
going to
like
march
lined
into
up.
Tampa Bay. Tom Brady's going to kick his ass, and then he's going to go play Geno Smith. Man, I love Geno Smith. I love this story. But if Geno Smith beats Tom Brady in the playoffs this year, put the man in the Hall of Fame. Like that's all I gotta say. Put the man in the Hall
Geno
of Fame.
Smith is genuinely a top 12 quarterback in the NFL. It's taken him a long time to develop into this point, but he is genuinely a guy that doesn't deserve to be thrown in there with Daniel Jones and Kirk Cousins is kind of the same tier, but I feel like he's a bit more challenging. He's definitely as good of a quarterback as Nick Foles was for the Eagles when they beat Tom Brady in the playoffs, but it still is just lining up so perfectly for this 45-year-old old man to just stumble into the playoffs and then
Divorced
somehow
man.
play nobody. Divorced man at this point, yes. But hey, shout out
Eh,
Tom Brady, I guess, for being
shout
what,
out the
4-6.
man. If I see Tom Brady in the Super Bowl again, I especially this Bucks team. We don't even have like a Gronk. We don't have like a cool Leonard Fournette.
You
Leonard
have K
Fournette
Dotton.
sucks now. Who?
K Dotton.
Yeah. It's just I do not want to watch this team in the playoff or in the Super Bowl again. And you know what? I could really, really see it happening. And you know what? We'll see. We'll see when we get there. But you know, I with the Bucks right now, they are just an aging team who seems like they know it. That's my only take on the Bills, right? Or the Bills, the Bucks. But playoff football is a lot different, and we all know that.
That it is. It's like it's you sneak in, anybody can win it, and who better than Tom Brady to make a miracle run? And right now, it feels like it's all. This is it for Tom Brady. There is no
Should be.
extra season that he can play. He can't go another year if it ends like this. So yeah, it's now or never for him at this point. Now or never to win
I'm
his eighth Super Bowl.
I don't want to. I mean, like this might sound a little dickish, I guess you could say.
I
But
want to see
imagine
it.
if Tom Brady, no, not that. Imagine if Tom Brady and the Bucks even make the playoffs, we'll say, and they lose round one. You divorce Giselle to lose in the wild card round of the playoffs. The first round, you didn't even get the bye, and you're gonna lose. I mean, Tom Brady's gonna go home that night to like his one, his apartment where like there's just like the couch and like the one TV and like the five beers in the oh, he's Tom Brady. He probably has like green juice in the fridge.
Tom Brady's sleeping on the couch right now.
Yeah, and he's just gonna be like, he's not even sleeping on the couch. They signed the papers already, so he's probably in the pool house. Like he's in his their second house. But you know what I mean. That would just be funny. It's kind of like that the scenes in like the romantic comedies. We're gonna have like the sad music playing. Gonna get home. No one's gonna be there, and
And he's
it's
gonna
gonna be
kiss his
like,
son.
damn, he's gonna kiss his son. I mean, if Tom Brady comes back after this, I'm gonna be like, all right, it's getting
Give it
cheesy at
up,
this
man.
point.
Give it
It's
up.
getting cheesy at this
It
point.
was cheesy this year. Tom Brady
It
should have just
was.
given it up. And the way that he ended against, and I understand you don't want to lose to the Rams, but the way that he ended that game, that's about as perfect as a way that Tom Brady could go. He threw like two touchdowns in like a minute period, and both of them were bombs to over. One was over Jalen Ramsey. And like, yeah, you didn't win the game, but you gave it your shot. Just you could have just rode off into the sunset on that one, and he just couldn't do it, and it cost him a lot of stuff, personal
A
stuff.
lot. A lot. I mean, like, is it worth it, Tom? Do you need that extra ring so badly? But I guess you do if you're Tom Brady. I mean, I've seen the one point on Twitter saying you can't tell an NFL legend when to stop.
Well,
But
I feel like it's Adam Schefter's fault that Brady is divorced because he.
wow, hot take right there.
Well, yeah, it is though because he broke the news of Brady retiring before Brady retired, and Brady was like, "You know what, Schefter, fuck you, I'm coming back and I'm not retiring." At least that's how it looked like that. Completely looked like that from the outside point of view because he was done. He was absolutely done.
And you know what? Like, just my last point on Tom Brady unretiring. But even with the Scheffler news, I mean, I remember Tom Brady's dad came out and said he's not retiring. He gave the whole 9 yards. Then Tom Brady posted the retirement post. You could have just not said anything. Like
Yeah.
genuinely could have just not said anything and really waited it out. But you know what? Maybe Giselle posted that one. Maybe she hacked his Instagram. So we'll really never know
Yeah,
the whole
I do
sequence.
feel like she definitely had a say in that coming out and him being like, yeah, I was obviously not in the household. I do not have any insight on the situation, but what I kind of imagine it was Tom Brady. She had been expecting him to retire and it coming up for a long time now, as everybody else in the world has. And Tom was just kind of indecisive either way. And then it got to the point where it's the off season. Everybody's expecting him to retire. And at this point, his wife it also is fully expecting it. And now at this point, if he doesn't do it, it's like a slight against her. And that's how this ended up getting as nasty as it did, I feel like, because she took it personal and he went back and played, it feels like. He doesn't spend time with her enough.
I'm
And
gonna be honest. I'm on her side. Like I'm just gonna say
well,
that. But
yeah, in a couple
I
ways, yeah. I don't think
because
anybody's perfect in this situation, but I feel like she's definitely right to not think that he should be still playing.
I mean nobody's perfect, but man, like go hang out with your kids. Like, is picking up your kids from middle school that hard? I mean, going back to your point about saying, everyone thought this guy was going to retire, and this is the first thing I thought of. You remember being in eighth grade and you're hearing about how Jimmy Garoppolo is going to take over for Tom Brady as the quarterback for the New England Patriots, and like that was just like what you heard for 4 years. Like, this guy's going to be it when Tom Brady retires next year. And now it's like 7 years later, and that did not happen. So it's just
We went
crazy,
a
this
few years
timeline.
with Jarrett Stidham being the next guy. There's been Brissett, there's been Garoppolo, there's been Stidham, and then with the Bucks, there's been Trask. So there have been a lot of different quarterbacks supposed to take over for Tom Brady because everybody else in the world, except for Tom Brady, just is expecting him to retire. They've been expecting him to retire for almost a decade at this point, and for about 8 years, he made the right decision until last year. Then he made the wrong one.
Yeah, one bad move, one bad move can ruin it though. But let's see what happens because as we said and as Nick Wright said, this could line up to be a superhero ending for this guy. And you know what?
It
I would
ain't
not
over.
doubt it.
It
It
ain't
ain't over
over.
till the fat lady sing. That will always be
Damn
my
right.
my favorite saying.
I was gonna
You
say it,
know,
but I wasn't going to because I knew you were.
it's my will always be my favorite one. Anything else for the NFL today after our Tom Brady love story,
No,
love
I
marriage
am ready to
story?
get into the MLB offseason. I'm
All right,
excited for that.
let's talk. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. First off, I want to talk about Brandon Nimio, and I know that's a weird
I
name to start with.
that is something I have on my agenda today.
I know that
His
is a I okay. Listen, I know he had a very good year. I
great year.
understand that.
He's had a couple great years.
This guy is not worth $22 million a year to
Not at
me.
all.
25. And you know what? Have you seen the Rockies? Like that whole not the whole rumor going around that the Rockies are interested in this guy. They're interested in bringing this guy to be their center fielder. This would be such a Rockies contract. You'll have Chris Bryan in left field for 60 games. You'll have what's his I just said his name. I just lost it. What's
Nimmo.
his name? Nimmo in center field, and you're still going to finish fourth in the division. It's just such a Rockies deal that I can definitely see happening.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't totally hate it for the Rockies because he's a guy, he gets on base and he can also occasionally hit for power. I mean, he's in, I think it's like 82nd percentile of max exit velocity, and he doesn't chase very much. He's got very good plate discipline. So I feel like he probably put up great numbers for them, but I kind of feel like he's not that caliber of player. He had a 5.1 WAR last season, but he's just that's his peak, and you're paying him for him to kind of play that same level and be $25 million is all-star money. Brandon
Yeah.
Nimmo isn't that kind of a player. And he's coming up on he'll be 30 by the time he starts next season. And I don't know, man. He's a great defender. Everything about him feels the role of what you might want as a center fielder, except for the fact that I think that his game is one that's going to age poorly because he relies a lot on his 86th percentile sprint speed to get like he's a hustler. That's what he is, and that's how he gets his extra stats that put him over the edge and make him look like a great player. I don't know that continues with age with him.
See, this is my point with bringing Nimio and the Rockies. I think this guy could be a great addition to a team going to next season. Say, I'm trying to win right now. The Colorado Rockies going into last season were a team that, other than the Chris Bryant bullshit, everyone was like, this team could be the worst team in baseball. Like genuinely, this team could be the worst team in baseball. What does this team have right now? I'm gonna get off this topic right now, but if Brendan Nimio was going to go to the Rockies, they would have Brandon Nimio, uh, CJ Cron, you have Brandon Rogers, you have Chris Bryant, and you have I forget his name right now, McMo or I can't
McMahon,
took over. Yeah, who took over for Aronat
yeah,
McMahon.
Ryan.
We know we're talking. Yeah, Ryan at third base. You have some good pieces, but this team, especially in this division, makes no sense. You know what? If I'm Brandon Nimio, go get your ring, man. Go leave New York. If you're gonna go leave New York, go to a competitor. One team that I'd really like to see a guy like Nimio on is the San Francisco Giants. I think that makes perfect sense if the Giants are doing what they said they're going to be doing and spending money. Go get your guy Aaron Judge, and then go get some guys to surround him because that's exactly what the Giants need right now.
I feel like there are better ways to allot your money if you're trying to compete than Brandon Nimmo. I am kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum here. I feel like if I'm Brandon Nimmo, I'm saying fuck the ring, fuck the competitive or competing. I'm not a guy that's going to put a team over an edge, although nobody's thinking that about themselves. But looking from the outside, Nimmo's not a guy putting a team over the edge. Go get paid. If the Colorado Rockies are offering you $25 million a year, go take that contract. You're going to put up good numbers in Colorado. It's a very hitter friendly stadium, especially for a lefty. And I think that, yeah, he's a guy that would really perform well there. And betting on yourself winning a ring is not something that the average players do, that the normal player does, the guy that's not a top 30, top 40 player, because they're not as worried about their legacy as they are worried about their bank account at the end of the day. So
I
I
think
feel
he's
like
going
that's
to
where
get it.
Nemo's at.
I think he's going to get it. I think he's going to have a similar contract and a similar free agent style that Starling Marte had last year. A guy who had a very good year, a very good contract year, a little older than most people are when they're going into this decision, and he's going to go get a what did Marte get? 4 years, 3 years, something like that. I think he's going
Yeah,
to get
it
around the same
was like
ballpark.
80. I
Yeah,
think Nemo will get paid a little bit more just for it being a lefty, and the I feel like he's better at the plate, honestly. And I feel like he had a much better year than Marte had. But like I said, Nemo, he's a guy that's probably pocket watching himself for right now because he hasn't gotten that payday yet, and this is his time to get the payday. He's not going to get it again when he comes off of his next contract at 34, 35 years old. This is the time for him to go get paid. If he wants to go ring chase, maybe go do that at like 35. But put yourself in a position to succeed. And I think, yeah, Colorado works. I don't think that that's putting Colorado in a position to succeed, but for Nimmo as a player and as a person, I feel like that's the best situation for him.
yeah. If you're checking your pockets, but man, if I see if I'm Brandon Nimmo and I look at this as a point of I'm saying this like I wouldn't think of it anyway. But if I'm Brandon Nimmo and someone offers me, if the Rockies, we'll just use them as our shitter. If they offer me $26 million per year, and a team like let's say Texas, I'm going to give you an interesting team like Texas, a team that is actually a little more serious about competing than I would say the Rockies, and a little bit more there. They could be a little bit more there this offseason. You taking $20 million to play in Texas, or are you taking the 25 million per year to play in Colorado? If you have a
I'd
little
have
bit
to.
more,
I'd have to look at the Colorado taxes. I don't know how that works,
that
but
is true.
20
And we're
million in
not no
taxes.
taxes,
Yeah,
no taxes,
yeah.
no
I
taxes.
got you. I think that at the end of the day, I'd probably still take the financial security in Colorado because
I
six
get that.
million dollar difference or $5 million difference, whatever you want to say, is not or it's not something that you can just be like, huh, whatever. Brandon Nimmo this season, which is the most he's ever been paid, was 1 million. Sorry, 1 year, $7 million, and like that's the difference between those two contracts there. I think that
Yeah.
like, yeah, he'll probably free agency tends to be whoever offers the highest contract for 99% of players. And somebody's going to offer Nimmo way too much. I think it'll be 5 years, 110.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see when that happens. And you know what? It'll be kind of funny because 2 years into this contract, gonna be like, shit, why did we do this? But you know what? Good for him. Go get your bag, Brandon, because you had a hell of a year and you beat up on the Phillies this year. So I could definitely say that you were a very good player, but you're definitely not $110 million
And
player.
can I put this out there? Scott
Go
Boras
ahead.
is his GM.
I mean, did you see what Scott Boras said about Carlos Correa? That was just funny to me. I mean, like he
No,
was
what?
kind of. Oh, he's like, let me pick up the exact quote because it was like funny. I don't want to just bullshit it. It was good though.
Yeah, Boras is one of my favorite, well, least favorite, but he gives you headlines.
You're the Dior of the defense. You're the Hermes of hitting. You're the Louis V of leadership, and you're the Prada of the postseason. That's what he said about Carlos Correa.
You're just doing alliteration now.
I'm
Bro is a poet. I mean that's hilarious, man.
you. You can't see. I mean, like you see all these people. I fucking hate Scott Boras. I hate what he's doing.
It's
You
funny,
know,
man.
It's good. You know what? If any of us were in his situation, as I mean, I'm just saying this because I'm gonna be honest. I could have all of these major MLB stars as my guy. I want them getting the most money they can get, and that's obvious. The player wants the most money they can get. The manager wants the most money they can get. That's how it works. And you know what? People are saying he's changing the game in a bad way. All of these players end up signed on a roster. There's just a little bit more drama to it, and then in major leagues compared to every other sport.
Yeah, Boris is he's a guy that does his job incredibly well. That's all he does.
Yeah,
That's just and for fans of teams, they tend to put the teams in front of the players. And Boris is a guy whose whole job is putting the players in front of the teams. So that causes a bit of controversy. But he's the perfect guy to have in that situation because he'll give you clips like that. He'll call somebody the Dior of the defense. Like what are we talking about with that? But that's just who Scott Boras is. It reminds me a little bit of the Trey Turner video that got put out where it was like hyping
John
him.
Hamm, that was great.
That was hilarious. Like I could, and when they were like, he's or like the best defender in like, come on, guys, this is Trey Turner. He's a below average shortstop by all metrics, but
He
it sounds great in the video.
like okay. Actually, I just wanted to say this real quick before we move on. James Clark or James not James Clark, James Click is out as GM of the Houston Astros.
Saw that. Yes,
It's a little weird, but you know what?
they offered him a 1 year deal.
I wouldn't take that. Go get your bag somewhere else. I mean, that's
Detroit,
going to be
no, no,
interesting
not Detroit.
actually.
Got in front office.
Detroit can't have shit in Detroit. I mean, I've been
No,
on
you
that for a
cannot.
very long time. Cannot have
Ask
shit
the
in Detroit.
Lions.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry. Before I said that, what did you say?
Uh, dude, I'm just moving along here. I have no clue what I said.
All right. Well, anyway, another guy I want to talk about because this kind of just reminded me of that. Wilson Contreras. This is a very weird
Oh, it
situation
was
because
Trey Turner. I was talking about
Trey
Trey
Turner,
Turner.
Trey Turner,
Yes.
John. Okay, we'll go back to the Contreras. But my one thing with Trey Turner that I wanted to say is, as a Phillies fan, everyone who watches this probably knows that by now that I'm a Philadelphia fan. Obviously, I want this guy, but as a general manager, hot take of a team like the Phillies right now, with all of this money built into so many players right now, and a couple bad contracts, is he worth the $28 million? If you can go get a guy like Dansby Swanson, who had a career year, and I don't think his numbers are ever going to be the same offensively. But there is just that difference between paying. Like, is Trey Turner worth $33 million a year? Because he relies a lot on athletic ability.
The
That's
thing
what
that
he's
worries
his
me,
game. Go ahead.
I feel like Trey Turner is one of those guys that's going to play very well into his late years because his swing is just it's perfect and it's compact and it's repeatable. But the guy that worries me in this free agency class is kind of Swanson, truthfully, because he had a huge breakout year where he hit 25 home runs, had 80 RBIs, but he still had, this is off memory, I think it was like a 770 OPS. He still struggles to get on base. He doesn't have the most incredible plate discipline in the world. And I do like Swanson a lot. His defense is incredible. He, like you said, he broke out this year, but I don't know that he's able to repeat that year after year. And in this shortstop market, I feel like he's going to get paid like the rest of the guys. In my opinion, the tier list goes Correa and Turner and their own like separate tier. Then I'll go Bogarts and Swanson down a tier because I feel like there is a big difference between those two tiers of guys.
I absolutely agree with you on that. And you know what? When it comes to Swanson, I think it depends on the contract. If he gets a $20 million per year contract, I think that is worth it. 4 years, something like that. But I don't think he's going to get that, as you said. I think he's going to get a little overpaid. I think he's either going to end up in Atlanta again on a little more of a heftier deal, kind of like the Freddie Freeman deal a little bit, where you're bringing back your hometown guy and they're kind of going to make up for it, I guess you could say, with the Freddie Freeman. Or I think he's going to go to a team like Baltimore, who you could use a leader like him. They're going to give him a little bit more money because they can right now because all of their talent is young and they don't have to pay it yet. But then there's a guy like Bogarts. And if I'm being completely honest, I am staying far away from this guy if I'm most MLB GMs. This is a guy who has openly said he's demanding I think it was over $30 million
Yep.
a year, and he wants more than 5 years. And you know what? Red Sox fans are killing the Boston Red Sox management right now, which has been terrible over the past couple of years. I will not deny that. But I wouldn't pay this guy. How old is he now? 30 or 31, I think. And
Yeah, he's 30. Just turned 30, but
lost his power.
he's 10 years of service time already in the MLB. He had a 5.8 WAR last season. He's a great player, but this is the key. Like, this is absolutely paying somebody for what they've already done instead of what they're going to do for you. Like you said,
Exactly.
he lost his power. It's been 2019 was the last time he hit 30 or he had 33. That's the only time he's hit 30 home runs. And then this year in 150 games, he hit 15. He did have 38 doubles, but then again, that's far off from where he was in his prime, where he was hitting 52 doubles and 33 home runs compared to 38 doubles and 15 home runs right now. He's still a good player. He's still decent, but he's on the wrong side of 30, and he's demanding top tier money. When there are guys in this free agency class like Correa and like Turner who are still in their primes and are worth that money now, who you're not paying for what they've done, you're paying for what they will do for you.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to pay Bogarts if you're a
No.
competent team. If I'm being honest, go let someone else go pick him up. And if you're going to overpay, if you're going to overpay, go overpay Trey Turner or go overpay Carlos Correa.
This
And
is
you know what?
Bogart's. Sorry, I just one last thing. This is
Yeah,
Bogart's lowest slugging percentage season since 2017, and it's the only time he's been under 500 slugging. He's at 456 this season. That
yeah,
I mean, it's the power is gone.
it's it's not what you want. It's not what you want to add for 7 years to your team with someone making over $30 million. And if I'm not wrong, I mean, if you have the page up right now, his defense was not that great this year either, was it? It was average from
I'm
what
gonna
I've seen.
find the advanced metrics on the defense right now. It's still loading, but I'll have them for you in just a second here.
Yeah, because all signs point to this will be a bad contract with Bogarts.
Yeah. Here they come. He Jesus is taking forever. Yeah, his arm strength is down to 31st percentile, which is not good, but the defense has still been at least average. It looks like he's probably going to benefit from a move to second base because the arm strength is low, but the outs above average are in the 88th percentile. I mean, he still played very well this year, but he doesn't have the athleticism anymore to stick at shortstop, which nerfs his value a lot.
That's just another point. Are you paying a second baseman who's 30 years old
Yeah.
$30 million? That's just not what you do now in the major leagues, especially with all these advanced metrics, and that's just not what you do anymore. So you know what? I'm going to give my take on Xander Bogaerts. I think if the Chicago Cubs can't go out there and go and sign Carlos Correa, because I think that's their top priority this offseason, I think they're going to go out and overspend for a guy like Bogaerts. I feel like Chicago and Chicago Cubs fans have just been begging and pleading to get out of this rebuild, thinking they can just go out and sign two major superstars, and they were like, right back to 2016, which in hindsight, if you look at the Cubs, there is a lot more internally, especially with pitching, they need to pitch or fix right now. And I can just see a Bogarts move to Chicago happening.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't hate the move, but you can't pay him long term. I think that it's a good thing to keep your team competitive because Chicago it's boring seeing them be this bad. And you wouldn't have to stick him at shortstop with Horner, who's incredible defensively, but and you also wouldn't even need him at third base because you got Morel. But it would be a great infield. Man, it's like you said, pitching. That team's lacking pitching all over. And Bogarts doesn't fix that. Um,
It's too much
Another
to
thing
fix.
with him, 35th percentile average exit velocity. That's like jarringly bad. That's not something you want to bet on at all. That puts you like in the bottom 35. Like average exit velocity is a big thing for hitters, especially guys that hit for power. And he's just in the dirt right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, as I said, go to a team who signs this guy, go have fun with him. He'll probably give you 2 to 3 decent years, above average, but not above average. I'm not trying to like kill Alexander Bogarts right now. I think he's a very good player. I know that, but he's just not worth what he's asking for. And as we've said multiple times on this show, you're not paying the guy for what he's done. You're paying for what he's supposed to do. And you know what? If there's one team that would, I guess, make sense if you're going to do that, it's the Red Sox. But the Red Sox aren't trying to be stupid. And you know what? They do not even want to pay Devers right now. So I think Bogarts is more than out of Boston right now. And that just proves
Absolutely.
our point from back in July. What the fuck were the Red Sox doing? Trade him. You could have gotten so much for this guy, and you said, no. You know what? We're gonna go out there. We're gonna go sign Tommy. We're gonna go trade for Tommy Pham, and we're gonna win 2 more games than we're supposed to. So you know what? The Red Sox are dumpster fire right now. We'll see what happens with that. I'm very interested to see if Devers gets extended by the end of the year or by
I
the
hope
beginning of the year.
for them, I hope so. But I feel like they're very comfortable moving on from Bogarts with Meyer coming up behind him. I'm a huge fan of Meyer.
Yeah, they have some good pieces. I mean, but if I'm the thing I look with the Devers, I think it's going to be a similar situation to Vladdy. Devers is not a good third baseman. He's just not. Move the guy to first base. It's kind of the same situation. He's too big to play third base. Like
Yeah,
his body is not built for it. He can be better long term, better defensively. I mean, if you put a third baseman at first base, that usually works out pretty well. So if I'm the Red Sox, play a little smart, go into the negotiations thinking that because that's what's going to happen eventually in Boston. He's going to be their long term first baseman if he signs an extension.
yeah, I don't disagree with that. I wonder if he considers himself a third baseman and should be paid like a third baseman, considering that's where they've been playing him.
Yeah, but you look at his defensive stats, and
Oh, they're
it's
terrible.
it's a very different story. I would just show him. I'd print it out on a sheet and be like, "Do you think we're going to give you $33 million to do this at the hot corner every single year?" I do not think so.
It's a
But
fair point.
moving on from Boston, moving on from Bean Town, I guess you could say. Wilson Contreras. This was a very interesting name. Another guy who I thought had no chance of being a Chicago Cub by the end of the trade deadline, and he was on that team. We both said, you know what, maybe this is it's a little weird, but maybe they're going to extend him now. Even though I thought that would be a little weird, they didn't. Him and Ian Happ. Again, Chicago dumpster fire right now. I don't know what they're doing. Use your assets, trade your assets. You traded Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo and Javier Baez the year before, which I'm not a Cubs fan, but as a baseball fan, that even hurt me a little bit.
Yeah,
And you won't trade Wilson Contreras and Ian Happ, but you'll trade your big three at the time. It makes it a little weird. But Wilson Contreras, I think he is another name. I think he's out of Chicago. I mean, he just declined his qualifying offer, obviously, which made sense. I think there are three teams that this guy ends up on. I think it's either going to be the Cleveland Guardians, and they're going to man up and spend some money because it would be great to have him behind the plate instead of Austin Hedges, who can call a decent game, but his offense is probably the worst in major leagues. I mean, he is downright awful. Contreras, I think his offensive numbers are a little overrated, if I'm being honest. I mean, I think he's
they are.
very good, but as a catcher, they're really good. So that's what you're kind of looking for. And that would just mold great in Cleveland. Another team where I think this is more about the money, but it would make them a little bit more competitive. I would like Miami. I
Yep.
think with that starting pitching, I think they definitely need bats. And I think the Pablo Lopez for Gleyber Torres trade is going to happen at some point this offseason. I think it should. That would give them two bats. That'd give you a second baseman in Gleyber, who we are big fans on this podcast. And I think a change of market would be great for a guy like him. And Wilson Contreras, just throw him behind the plate and win 80 games and barely miss the playoffs. That's where you are as Miami. And then you have the Cubs, who you bring him back and he's your long-term catcher. Those are my three situations for Wilson Contreras.
I agree with. I mean, that's pretty perfect there. Originally, I'd said that you don't not trade Contreras unless you're going to re-sign him, but signs are pointing towards them not willing to re-sign him. So I'm interested to see if he ends up somewhere else. I think the one team, like you mentioned, that's going to offer more money than the Cubs is the Marlins. The Marlins are starved for any kind of talent on that team right now, and Contreras is like a catcher like this doesn't hit the open market that often. So it'll be pretty interesting to see if they're willing to pay for him. And hey, you make up for your mistake letting the best catcher in baseball go with JT Realmuto.
Yeah, for a pitching prospect who's still not in the major leagues because he just can't get unfat. He just is
Yeah,
too fat. Sixto Sanchez, great talent, but get your body in shape, man. But yeah, I just would like to see that happen. Sticking on the Marlins real quick with the whole Pablo Lopez situation. This is a moment of sell high. If you look at Pablo Lopez's statistics, he's a good pitcher. He's a good pitcher. That's really it. And I think this would be the same type of situation that happens in New York all the time. They're going to trade for a guy who is in a small market, pitched pretty good, didn't make the All-Star game, but a lot of people think he should have. Maybe was a Cy Young candidate for 5 days. And then I'll go to New York and I'll give you a 4.2 ERA. And then Gleyber Torres is going to be in Miami ranking. I think that will be the end all of this trade.
Yeah, Lopez is a guy who like you said, he performed very well. He had a couple of very good starts last year, but the spin rate's not there with him. He doesn't have the swing and miss stuff. He doesn't have the stuff that you are willing to bet on long term. So every single one of his pitches is league average or below league average. So I'm not willing to bet on that. Not at all. He's an average pitcher. He's a guy that'll give you like a 4 WAR and start like 28 games for you a year, which is fine. There's a place for that in a rotation, but that's not a guy that the Yankees. That's not who the Yankees need. They need a 2 or a 3 in the rotation. Well, they really need an ace, but they've slid Garrett Cole in there. So
yeah, we'll see what happens with the Yankees. They are I don't know. Yankees fans right now kind of just want to die. Like
I
if
feel
you
like
look on the
I
Brian
feel like this
Cashman
is
situation, it's bad. I mean, he's out here saying like, I know you have to say this as GM, but when you hear your GM say after you just had the whole Aaron Judge season, we're going out here, we're looking for a left fielder, we're looking for a right fielder, and we're sticking with Josh Donaldson at third base. Those were his like first opening lines at the press conference, which is that's just not what you want to hear as a Yankees fan.
Yeah, I listened to that Cashman press conference. It was just excuse after excuse after excuse with everything. He called DJ LeMahieu an MVP candidate. And look, I like DJ
It's been
LeMahieu's
3 years. It's
yeah,
been
he's
3 years.
and it was the COVID year too, by the way. Like, look, we're not going to take that. DJ LeMahieu has put together some great seasons. He's not that guy anymore. Why? Like, you can't keep betting on that. And like you said, he reimbursed Josh Donaldson. I can whatever, man. I thought he was gone for sure, but I'm really interested to see what happens when they inevitably let go of Aaron Judge because he will not be coming back to that team. I know that the talk in the media is like maybe he comes back. Like it's pretty close. There are a couple other teams that are suitors for him. No, he's gone. I can almost guarantee you he's moved out of New York already. He is ready to go and join another franchise. And this is a California guy. This is not a guy that has any kind of ties to New York. There's no reason for him to still be there except for New York was the team with the highest payroll that was going to offer him crazy amounts of money, but they haven't done it yet. If they're not offering him crazy amounts of money, fuck you, New York. I'm going somewhere else. Somebody will give him money.
And you know what the thing is? I mean, I hate to use this narrative because it's such a Yankees fan narrative. But if the boss was still there, this thing would have never happened. Aaron Judge, if he wanted $25 million more added to that fucking contract as New York Yankee, he would have been like, here you go, sign the contract, there we go, and it would have been done. And this would have just been a year of Aaron Judge, and it would have been a great deal by the Yankees, got it done. But no, they shot themselves. And you know what? I don't think Aaron Judge is worth the long term of the deal because there are a lot of things just pointing to it. He's a big man. He's 6'8", 6'9". He's going to be 31 next year. You want to give this guy 8 years? Probably not. But I don't know. It's a weird situation for you have to do it because that's how you're going to get him on your roster. But the Yankees right now, as I've said multiple times, you sign this guy, there's nothing else you're doing. And you know what? You kind of have to pick and choose what you're doing because you already fucked yourself with the Stanton contract. You fucked yourself with the Garrett Cole contract. And you know what? I know it's only 1 year, but Jesus, you fucked yourself with a Josh Donaldson contract. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? And you know what? It's just year after year after year with the Yankees and their excuses. And then Yankees fans saying Carlos Correa is our savior now. Like, you have literally Anthony Volpe and Oswald Peraza sitting there. You don't need a shortstop. Like, I'm being like, you don't. There's certain things that Yankees fans have to realize. You're not playing the show. You're not playing the show. And if the Yankees were smart, they would rebuild this team internally, bring in some guys with that extra money. But I don't know. Brian Cashman's a dumbass. And I don't think this team changes that much.
With a few bad contracts, with like Josh Donaldson, Rizzo to an extent. I know Rizzo hasn't been a bad contract, but he's an older player, and it's more just Rizzo. Gallo was another one. He was more of a guy that you traded for. IKF is another huge one, but with a few bad contracts, they've taken a roster with so much talent and so much potential and just screwed it and put it into such a bad position. Like, they probably have one of the best farms going into the year, had one of the best farms in Major League Baseball with 3 prospects that I think are huge, like superstars in the wings. Like you've got Peraza, you've got Volpe, and you've got Dominguez. Those are all three guys that I believe very heavily in, and they just went out and blocked those positions, got guys to fill those positions so that they can't come up. And the guys that they got to fill the positions are fucking terrible, but you're paying them a ton of money, so you can't get rid of them. Who's going to take Josh Donaldson right now? Nobody, not a single soul in the world. And then they're still giving IKF the job next year after that
Oh,
horrible season where people were where the whole year Yankees fans were saying once IKF goes, it's going to be so much better. IKF sucks. IKF sucks. He had a few good moments, but every single Yankees fan fucking hated this dude, and he still slotted in at shortstop for the next season. And this is a team in their mind trying to compete right now. It's an absolute joke. Cashman's a joke. The whole team needs to be fired. Like the whole front office has to go at this point. Like you said, if Stud Record was still there, none of this happens.
I don't know. You would have like shot them. Like it
Yeah.
would like this wouldn't have not happened. But the funniest thing that this is my last takeaway with IKF because I don't really want to talk about him that much. But when they traded for him, this guy won a Gold Glove at third base. You know what? If you wanted a solution at third base, slide him there. And you know you have your options open at shortstop. Even Cabrera, I like Cabrera at shortstop. Like that's just another option. But no, you bring in an aging Josh Donaldson who's like 36 years old. And my favorite thing with the whole Donaldson contract, this is bringing in Donaldson that Cashman said. He basically said, we need a dog in this locker room. We need a guy who can, bolster the energy for $22 million and looks at four-seam fastballs right down the middle. That is not the best way to do it. Anyway, we'll see what happens with the Yankees, but we've been saying this since July. Aaron Judge is gone, and he is on his way to San Francisco. I wanted to move to one more team in the American League East, the Blue Jays. And there is a bolster of catchers that they had. They have Montero, they have Jansen, and they have Alonzo Kirk. And there is rumors going around that they're looking to trade one of these guys. And I'm going to just say what I think should happen. If you're the Blue Jays right now, there are some holes. There are some bad contracts. The biggest one is the George Springer. I think they still owe him 4 more years on this deal, which was crazy. Like it's just mind blowing, some of these contracts. I'm moving Kirk, and that might sound crazy, but you got a guy like Montero who I think is great or can be great, and Kirk sell high. Jansen's a good locker room guy, good backup catcher. Use that duo. I don't know where you stand with that, but I think Alonzo Kirk getting traded right now, he could be worth a lot of money, and there are teams out there willing and ready to go get an offensive catcher because that's one thing in the major leagues right now. It's become a lot more evident the impact of a good offensive catcher.
I mean, I don't think that. I feel like you probably could get more back for Moreno, wouldn't you? Than for Kirk, a younger guy, a top 20 prospect. I feel like Moreno would probably be worth more, and I think that the answer in my eyes, which is. I feel like this is a bit of a stretch. I don't know that they'd ever actually do this because I'm a huge Jansen fan. I think that trade them both, Moreno and Kirk, and go ahead and go get Jansen. I feel like, or not go get Jansen, just keep him. Those two guys have a lot of value. Moreno isn't a guy that I trust behind the plate long term. He's a good bat, but as a catcher in general, he still has a couple of issues. He doesn't present pitches very well in my mind, and Kirk is another guy like that, but I feel like Jansen's the guy that's the most well-rounded out of that group. So, and the guy with the least value, in my opinion. So I think that there could be a way that they end up I don't think they would ever actually move on from Moreno and Kirk together, but if I were, I'd go Jansen and just get as much as you can for those guys because, like you said, need to fill pitching, need to fill second base. There's a couple things that they need to fill on this team.
Yeah, Kirk's 23, Moreno's 22. So that's why I'm kind of looking at it as a point
Kirk is 23?
That's why I'm saying this guy was an all-star last year. He had decent offensive numbers. I think you can just get a lot for this guy. And I mean, you've seen his build. How good is this build going to be for that long?
Well, the thing with Kirk is that he is probably the best framer in the MLB. He frames pitches so incredibly well. He doesn't throw runners out well at all, which is you can steal on this guy if you want to at any time. But everything else, he doesn't strike out ever. He doesn't, or he walks a good amount. He hits the ball fairly hard. And I don't know. I feel like Kirk. I did not know he was 23 years old, man. That's crazy.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I feel like you get a shit ton for this guy. Like Cleveland, I think
Oh, Cleve,
Cleveland is like a team that can be like, here you go. A guy
have
who's
my
has
child.
how many more years does he have left under control? Probably like 3 or 4. Like
I'm
that's just
sure
a
something like that.
that's just a team that or that's just a trade that teams are probably fuming over. I mean, the offensive catcher, as I've said, it's become a lot more valuable. We have Sean Murphy, who I think will get traded, and I'm just excited to see what's some of these moves that people aren't really talking about. What's going to happen, like trade wise?
I feel like it's so funny looking at his build 5'8", 250. But this
Yeah,
is a guy that struck out 10% of the time. That was top 2% of the league. Like, dude's good.
he's smart. Yeah, he's a
He's
great
good.
hitter. I
And
mean, there's
his
nothing against
XBA
it.
is, yeah, his expected batting average top 8%. So like, dude's good. You could pull in a pretty penny for this guy and for a good catcher as well. I mean, like you said, Cleveland could be an option here.
But we'll see what Cleveland does. I think they should just go out there and get the established vet. But I don't think I've ever seen Cleveland ink a long-term deal other than that Jose Ramirez contract in my entire life. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. We'll see what they do. How about the Cardinals? What do they do at catcher? I
Uh,
mean, they have decent, but they have decent guys back there. But as I said, there are some names on the market. Are the Cardinals interested? I mean, like as I said last year, I was not that scared about the Cardinals, but they're aging. They are aging and they are aging. And are you relying on Paul Goldschmidt to have another MVP year? I mean,
I
you
hope
probably rely
not.
on Arenado to do that, but
Yeah.
I don't know. There are just some things on this team that I think are in question. I like Rogers. I like Edmund, but you need a leader back there. I love
I
the
just
catching position.
I wonder if they trust Ivan Herrera. If they do, then that's who they're going to end up going with the prospect. But I don't know. He's 22. I has he even debuted yet? I think he did last year. Yeah, 18 at bats with 2 hits. So,
Now,
I mean, he debuted. So we might see him again. I mean, his exit velocity on one of those hits was 106. So,
superstar
bro,
in the making.
broken swing. But
Yeah.
I don't know what they're gonna do with that. But like you said, there are some big names out there. They could be interested in going at another. I mean, I don't think it's impossible to say that they're a sneaker team for Contreras, but
Yeah,
I don't know that they would go after Contreras with his contract.
I think they're more of a Sean Murphy type of team. Like you can trade
Yeah.
for him and give him like a cheaper extension.
Oh
You know what?
yeah.
Let's I'm going to give you two more names. We're going to talk about them. Little prediction. Start off Jock Peterson. This is an interesting one. This is a guy who had by far one of his best offensive years of his career in San Francisco. He's a terrible defender though, but
Hmm.
you love Jock Peterson. Everyone loves Jock Peterson. If you're the Giants right now, what are you doing? Are
Bring
you
him back.
looking to bring this? Are you bringing him back to be your left fielder and you're putting Aaron Judge in right?
Yeah.
Is that your? Oh, yeah, because I think so too. Also, I think this is a guy who's going to get a little bit more money than people are expecting to.
I
Because
think he's gonna get a big 2 year deal.
I think he's going to get 3 to 4. I think this is a guy who he's been playing on a lot of short-term deals recently, and I think he wants his money. And I think he loves the Bay. He's made that very evident. I mean, if you look at his
Hmm.
Instagram bio, he's like, "Love the Bay, like from the Bay." Blah blah blah. Like I love. I've always been a Jack, but like I think he's definitely staying in California at least. Like I guess that's a little bit of a open assessment, but I just think he's a Cali guy.
Yeah, I 100. He's one of the best hitters in the sport, and I feel like there's just not a way if they're the Giants want to really compete and go after and try and win a ring like they say they do, you can't let Jock Peterson go. He's one of those guys that you want at the plate in the playoffs. That's
I
just
mean, 23 home runs, 70 RBIs, and 70 RBIs is good on this team because this team,
mhm.
God forbid, this team cannot get on base. 874 OPS, 144 OPS plus, 57 runs, 104 hits, and he batted, I don't know if I said it already, but he batted 274. And these are great numbers. And that's a guy who you want either hitting behind Aaron Judge, in front of Aaron Judge, whatever, but make it
everything
happen.
here. All of the stats I'm looking at here are in the top 5% of the league. Hard hit percentage, XWOBA, WOBA, X slugging percentage, max exit velocity, spot percentage, XWOBA con. Like everything about Jock Peterson is he hits. That's what he does.
You're
So
right.
that's a guy that you want. Who's the other guy you had in mind?
I was gonna close it off. Let's go Jacob DeGrom. What's your
Texas.
prediction for him? I was gonna say I think he's going to get a huge 2 year deal. Maybe three, but I think it's going to be a 2 year deal ranging around 40, $45 million a year. Maybe
Oh, if
more.
if it's 2 years, it's going to be more than that because he will not be paid less than Max Scherzer. He won't. He will be
Oh,
the highest paid
imagine,
pitcher of all
man,
time.
imagine getting 2 year $100 million in Texas. Like you're literally getting $100 million.
That's
Like
ridiculous.
no
But hey,
taxes.
for 2 years, man. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what it's going to be too. I could see three like 130. But I feel like if I'm DeGrom, I'm taking the 2 year deal there. But
I
I mean,
I think this move makes a lot of sense. I mean, obviously you want the best, when he's healthy, best pitcher in the league. Obviously you want that on your roster, no doubt. But this would be great for your young guys. I mean, Texas has a lot of young pitchers who, they're counting on to be big for them down the line. You have Kumar Rocker, who's looked pretty damn good in his fall league. Jack Leitner, who I think is still going to be a very, very good pitcher. He struggled a little bit last year, but, his first year, dominant in college. This would be a great guy to have there in spring training, mentoring these guys. And I think DeGrom's for it. I think we talk about Judge, wanting out of New York. I think Jacob DeGrom is a prime example of a guy who is done. He's done with the New York media. He's ready to go be on his horse in Texas and his ranch house and be in Arlington for the rest of his career.
I don't blame him. Not one bit.
Yeah,
But
so I'm really excited for the Rangers, and we'll see what happens with them down the line.
yeah, you got anything else for today? I feel like we covered a lot.
No, I'm all good. Well, guys, thank you so much. We are currently sitting in the second day of MLB free agency, and nothing good has happened yet, other than Clayton Kershaw is back on a 1 year, $20 million that was just finalized. But anyway, guys, thank you so much. I'm Chris here with Chase. Thank you for joining us today. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at CCSN Sports, and we'll see you guys again. Thank you so much.